Hi everyone. I am here to introduce Professor Bill Schmidt, or as his TAs like to call him, Schmidt. I wasn't quite sure what to say in this introduction, so I did what any other intrepid MBAs do. I asked other people to do it for me. When I asked for a reaction about Bill, I got some expected ones, like passionate, hardworking. I also got some unexpected ones, like he's a beast in the gym, definitely a bro. Many of you also said that he was able to connect with you in a way that few professors can. Most of you probably don't know his background, but he also got his MBA and was incredibly successful for over a decade in the business world before coming back to academia. You also probably don't know that he got his PhD at Harvard, which I actually think says a lot about him, since he might be the only person at Johnson that didn't bring up they went to Harvard in the first 5 minutes of the meeting. Was the same word over and over and over again, and that was caring. How much he cared for his students, cared for their learning, cared for their personal lives, or as my roommate put it, his give a fuck factor is very high. Some of that is because he's been in our shoes before, but I think most of it is really the core of who he is. That's why he left a successful business career to help teach others. That's why he brings his family to State Social and names characters in his cases after them. That's why he spends an insane amount of time working with students. That's why he's here speaking with us today. So please join me in welcoming Professor Schmidt to the stage.
Dude, Rob, you just totally threw me off my game. So, they tell us that you're always going to be nervous when you present. And it's okay to be nervous when you present, because it shows that you really care about the message and you care about the audience. I'm nervous as hell. Thank you very much for inviting me to participate in this aspect of your graduation. It means a lot to me, and I hope I can add something to the ceremony. So honestly, when I was asked to deliver one of these lectures, I was like, really? You guys want to hear from your data analytics and modeling? I mean, what the hell have we done to you people? Then I realized, actually, after engaging with some of you guys, that your attitude about school has really mellowed with time. I look back on you guys a year ago, and the anxiety and the tension that you had, and now, it's strange to see that some of you are actually starting to feel like nostalgic about Johnson. And I just wanted to say that, in all honesty, it is because your core faculty members worked so diligently to make your first year a living hell that you are enjoying your second year as much as you will. From all of your core faculty, I just want to say you're welcome. Yeah, the lecture is actually a bit of a blessing, and I'll tell you why. As I was thinking back on what I wanted to present to you guys, I realized that I was kind of rushed in class day 8, and so I thought it would come on, you guys do this to yourself. 15 minutes and a captive audience. Right, so if you want to frame my discussion in the context of a man who came from very humble beginnings, and through hard work, he rose eventually to become the chairman and CEO of a company with a multi-billion-dollar market capitalization. Okay? Don Blankenship was born in Stopover, Kentucky. He was raised in DeLorme, West Virginia. His parents were divorced when Don was still an infant. His mom ran a gas station and convenience store. And despite his kind of modest background, Don went on to graduate from Marshall University with a BA in accounting in 3 years. He would eventually be recognized by Marshall as one of their most distinguished alumni. He would get the Lewis College of Business award and be inducted into their Hall of Fame. He would also be inducted into the Hall of Fame of the American Institute of Certified Public Accountants. Okay? Don got his first big job with what was a subsidiary of what would one day become Massey Energy in 1982. Don worked exceptionally hard. He was promoted to become president, then president and chief operating officer. And when Massey spun off from its parent company as a freestanding publicly traded entity, Don was the first chairman and CEO of the company. Don drove himself relentlessly. He worked exceptionally hard. He strove to achieve a lot, and he did achieve a lot. In an interview, Don said, "What you have to accept in a capitalist society generally is that it's like a jungle, where a jungle is survival of the fittest." And I think these words are apropos for all of you guys as you embark on your post-MBA career. Because you have to wonder whether or not you've got the skills and the tools from this education to really be successful in the environment that waits for you. And this is actually a huge coincidence for me on a number of factors. I came across Don Blankenship in my own research. Now, you guys suffered through a lot of my research. If you look back, a lot of your cases were tied directly to my research. So whether you know it or not, you appreciate some of the bits of research that I do. My research involves studying how companies deal with disasters. Okay? One of my early projects involved going through literally millions of press releases looking for announcements that companies made about disasters. And then I would look at, okay, what are the factors that may have contributed to the disaster? What happened to the company in the disaster, and how did the company respond to the disaster? My data set runs from 1991 until 2012. And so there I am as a doctoral student going through these announcements, trying to figure out which of these literally millions of press releases that companies put out, which of these are related to the subject at hand. And I'm going through all these press releases and identifying disasters, and I get to the year 2000. And in 2000, that's when I come across Massey Energy for the first time. In that year, a retention pond for Massey Energy breached, and it released 200 million gallons of coal slurry into two mountain streams, the Coldwater Creek Stream and the Wolf Creek Stream. It killed all aquatic life in these streams and poisoned the water for the surrounding community. The Environmental Protection Agency at the time said that this was the worst natural disaster to hit the southeast United States. Well, this wasn't the last time that I'd come across Massey Energy. Every year, one or two major disasters would hit Massey. In 2006, a Beltline fire killed miners Don Bragg and Ellery Hatfield. Efforts to fight the fire were hampered because they didn't have proper firefighting equipment. The couples on the fire hoses didn't connect to the fire supply or the water supply of all things. When they finally did get a connection, there was insufficient water going through the pipes. Massey Energy paid the largest financial settlement in the coal industry's history to resolve criminal and civil charges. The disaster was so egregious that it prompted the United States Congress for the first time in 40 years to update the U.S. federal mine safety regulations. I mean, it takes a lot of work to get Congress back. In 2008, the company made what was then the largest settlement with the EPA under the Clean Water Safety Act for continuously violating and routinely polluting the waterways in Kentucky and Virginia. And then, on April 5th, 2010, an explosion at Massey's Upper Big Branch mine killed 29 miners. It was the worst mining disaster to hit the United States in 30 years. The Mine Safety and Health Administration concluded that flagrant safety violations contributed to the explosion. So, you gotta ask yourselves, was management aware that there was a problem? Were there signals? Was this something that was lurking beneath the surface and it surprised them? In the investigation for this particular incident, it was revealed that there were 1,100 violations for this mine alone in the prior 3 years. 50 of those violations came the month prior. The mine had been shut down by federal regulators 60 times in the year prior to this explosion. And let me tell you, if you are the operator of a facility and your facility gets shut down 60 times in a year, you know about it. The only question is, are you going to do something about it? Or are you going to treat the regulators as if they are the enemy? Are you going to treat your business environment as if it is hand-to-hand combat, as if it is a jungle, as if it is survival of the fittest? Businessweek article said that Blankenship had a reputation for resistance to spending money and a willingness to litigate. The New York State Comptroller complained that Massey's cavalier attitude toward risk and callous disregard for the safety of its employees had exacted a horrible cost on dozens of hard-working miners and their loved ones. Union critics accused Blankenship of regarding fines as simply the cost of doing business. In other words, it's what Don Massey said, what you have to accept in a capitalist society generally is that it's a jungle, where a jungle is survival of the fittest. So how does this tie to hypothesis testing? Well, if you're looking for scientific proof that there are bad actors in this circumstance, you have to acknowledge the possibility that bad things can happen to good companies, right? There is no statistical test that I can run using my data that can prove that Don Blankenship is culpable. As you know from my class, coming up with this kind of evidence is difficult to do. But I'll tell you this, most US companies don't even find themselves in my data set. 89% of the companies that do find themselves in my data set have 1 or 2 disruptions. Bad things can happen to good companies. 98% of the companies that are in my data set have no more than 4 disruptions. Massey Energy had 12 disruptions in my data set, more than any other company. The first time Massey Energy had a disruption in my data set was 2010. Don Blankenship assumed his role as leadership of this company in 2000. He assumed his role as the leader in 2000. The last time this company is in my data set is 2010. That's the year that Don stepped down. Do I believe that there was serious mismanagement here? Absolutely. I've said it many times in class, and I'll say it again. Analytics cannot replace your business intuition. Simply because you do not have scientific proof does not mean that something isn't so. All too often, companies rely on this lack of scientific proof as license to justify bad behavior. Companies might say, there's no scientific proof that what we're doing is damaging to our constituents, our customers, our community, and our environment. Until there's scientific proof that we're doing things that are harming, we have license to continue doing things. If companies are doing something that could be harmful, shouldn't they assume that it is harmful and then seek scientific proof that it is in fact not harmful? Flip the null and the alternative hypothesis. Put the burden of the proof on the other end. Seek to convince yourself that what you are doing is not damaging. Don't do things that could be damaging until you find overwhelming evidence that they actually are. So how did things end at Massey? Well, former Massey energy official accused Blankenship of plotting to hide safety violations from federal safety inspectors. Prosecutors said Massey manipulated the ventilation system during inspections of the Upper Big Branch mine to fool these safety officials and disabled a methane monitor prior to the explosion. As for Blankenship, coincidentally, he made headlines again just last month when he was sentenced to 1 year in prison for this explosion. I certainly do not believe that any one of us will go down this path. But I want every one of us to recognize that we could go down this path. And there's two ways that I see that we have. I want to talk about them. The first way is allowing yourself to believe that there are two ethical standards. One ethical standard that drives your personal behavior, and another ethical standard that drives your behavior as a business manager. As Neil Grimmer, chairman and co-founder of Plum Organics, pointed out, the phrase, "it's not personal, it's business," is perhaps one of the most damaging expressions in business because it removes ethics and morality from decision making. In other words, it diminishes your humanity. In other words, it justifies to you that you can have these two standards for ethical practice. What I would do as a person and what I would do as a manager, and somehow what I would do as a manager, well, it's a jungle out there. A second way that you can find yourself traveling down the wrong path is by allowing yourself to believe that you cannot let people down. Now, this is more insidious because it pits your desire to be a good performer against your desire to be a good person. And everyone is susceptible to it. I'll explain this by giving you a summary of what I will call the Silky speech. It's in honor of a guy named John Silky. You don't know John Silky. John Silky was the mentor of one of my early mentors, Mark Packard. And John gave this speech to Mark, and Mark gave it to me, and now I'll share it with you. It goes basically something like this. As you move forward in your careers, there's going to be very high expectations put on you. You are very hard workers. You have become accustomed to success. And as you strive to meet those high expectations, you are going to be rewarded with higher expectations. People are going to seek you out because you're the person who gets shit done. You can handle it. They'll want you on their projects. They'll want your advice. The commitments on your time will grow. It will become relentlessly higher and higher expectations. Now, in your desire to avoid letting people down, you will run the risk of letting yourself down. You will feel like you are in that jungle. It becomes very hard. The pressure on you becomes immense. Now, this speech, when it was given to me, was like supposed to make me feel better. I hate this speech because it doesn't make me feel better. It makes me feel worse. For people who aspire to be high performers, this speech paints a trap from which there are very few exits. What it has done, though, is made me think very hard and very long. And after a lot of consideration, I think I came up with what could be an exit. And it's this. Let yourselves fail. It's like liberating. Failing on a professional level is almost admirable. At worst, failing on a professional level is something that can motivate you. It can give you experience that you can learn from. Failing on an ethical or moral level is an entirely different beast altogether. When you fail on an ethical or moral level, you have begun a path that gets very slippery very quickly. Because, well, you bend the rules a little bit to meet those expectations, and then there's higher expectations. So now you got to bend the rules just a little bit more. And then the expectations get higher. And it's just, okay, I did this last time, so next thing you know. Now, the thing about this is, you can't run away from that voice inside of you. It's the one voice you've always got to listen to. Some people recover from these types of failures. Some people, however, find it easier to deal with that voice inside of them by cloaking themselves in a new ethical reality. And there you are. So, you're leaving Johnson with a lot of skills. The tasks before you are going to be very challenging. You're going to need hard work, and you're going to need guts. However, you need guts to do things the right way. Don Blankenship was definitely hard work. He was tough as nails. He was gutless. He didn't do things the right way. He did not stand up when the expectations were high and say, I realize what we want to achieve here, but this is what we need to do, and it's right by the company, it's right by our constituents, it's right by our community. No one can tell me that Don Blankenship ran Massey Energy for 10 years and did not see how this game was playing out. No one can tell me that he didn't realize what he was doing. So the tasks before you would certainly be easier if you didn't encumber yourselves with ethics and morality. I want to challenge you to encumber yourself. Recognize that being a business leader that leads not just to succeed in the business game, but in the community game. That is something that's worth managing. Succeeding at all costs just at business is not a game that you win. The next time I see many of you guys, I'm going to be the one that's down there in the crowd among the seated folks. You guys are going to take the stage. I hope it's not the last time that we meet. But I don't know why, but I'm having a very strange emotion. It's like I'm saying goodbye to something. This is, God bless you. God bless your families. Remember that it is okay to fail. It is okay to let other people down. It's not okay to let yourself down. So, my dad was really good at giving people unsolicited advice. One of his favorites was never pass up a good opportunity to shut up. I think I'll take his advice.